Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Alan Jackson with the Footcandle Film Festival and the Footcandle Film Society out here in Hickory, Western North Carolina, and we're really happy to have everybody here joining us for this next live Q&A discussion with some of the filmmakers involved in a film that many of you just watched, or you could be watching this interview from having watched the film earlier in the week. Either way, we're just happy to have you here. And as a reminder, these conversations are recorded, so they will be available for anybody later in the weekend that ends up watching the film at a later time. They are pre-recorded or recorded and ready for on-demand playback at any time as well. So I'm Alan Jackson over here to my left, Chris Fry, also with the Footcandle Film Festival and Footcandle Film Society. And we're very excited to have with us some of the people involved in the film that many of you just watched, The Adventures of T-Man, Autism and the Quest for Independence, a documentary. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the screen as we have three of the people involved in the film right here with us. Starting in the left-hand corner, following along with me around the circle here, up in the left-hand corner is Nick Deal, who is the director of the film. Hi, Nick. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great.
Great. Glad to have you here. Over on the top right is Lindsay Bracchiali. Did I get it right?
Bracciali.
Lindsay's the CEO of Advocation. You saw her in the film as well. And then in the bottom corner there, or bottom section, we have with us Terence from the film. So Terence, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you this afternoon?
Wonderful. Terence Fenner, great to have you here. Guys, we're just so appreciative of your time and spending it with us. We love to talk about the film. As I mentioned before we started recording, we've gotten some great feedback from people that have seen the film. I think it's really reached a lot of people and touched a lot of people, and people found it very engaging and interesting and love hearing your story, Terence. So with that, I'd love to just kind of kick it off and ask you a little bit about getting started on the film. How did you all get connected? Kind of talk us through the process of what brought this film to light.
How did we get connected? Well, I was scouring sort of North Carolina news to try and find topics and things that were interesting, and I came upon a really quick little blurb about Lindsay's work with Advocations and the work that she was doing, launching another sort of tangential startup called Notable, where she was aiming to develop software that was going to get people with disabilities, you can explain this better, Lindsay, but sort of a second chance or a better chance of their resume getting through to employers. And she was also at the same time doing this work, sort of the hands-on work that you see in the film, helping people with disabilities, cognitive differences, get and maintain employment. And she sounded really interesting to me. Here was a young woman working in not just the startup entrepreneurial space, but also in the disability space. That sounded to me just very, very interesting. So we met, we talked about it, talked about, following her around for an extended period of time. And we were going to follow her and then sort of talk about some of the people that she was helping. We were going to do sort of a two stories at one sort of thing. And we started filming with Lindsay, and Lindsay was fantastic and great and everything. And I hope she's not offended, but she introduced us to Terence really quick. She's like, "You got to meet this guy. He's just super, super dynamic. He's got it. He like anybody has his set of struggles, but he's just really not going to let anything get in his way. And he's just a wonderful energy." We met Terence, and I think the first or second day that we were filming with Terence was that scene at work, I suppose, where he's like, I have this plan for a year. I'm going to be in a new apartment. I'm helping my parents out now, and I'm going to do this, and this. He just sort of laid out the whole film for us, like really quickly. And we were like, Terence seems to be, he might be the subject of our film. He's really interesting. He seems comfortable opening up to us. He's very brave in that way. And it sort of flowed from there. We just kept spending more time with Terence, and the film just sort of, his story just sort of, organically grew from there.
That's so great. And Lindsay, kind of maybe talk us through your approach to, being approached to be having a documentary made that you're going to be involved with, and obviously the type of work you were doing is now going to be featured in this. Talk us through that, the thought process. Was that something, did you find that to be a challenge, a struggle, something you got excited about?
I was excited, but obviously, I think when we first started, Nick explained that there was several different storylines that he was going to follow and see which one actually developed. And the work that we do, every day is different. And I was just really excited that Nick saw what I see in T-Man and have seen the whole time. And I think that I couldn't be more excited that they ended up kind of really focusing on T-Man, because I feel like there's a lot of stories about people with autism where it characterizes people, not really the human elements of it. And I think that that's really what T-Man, it's always this superpower, not realizing that T-Man's superpower is just being him. And I think that that's what you captured. And as far as, the initial part, all my friends thought I was crazy. And then you don't know what you don't know. And now, like, looking back, it was just all of those things that, Nick mentioned, that tech startup, still working on that. We're about to launch, and everything takes longer than you expect. And so I think that that's one of those, hindsight's 2020, but when you get to see it on film and see how much work goes on after you actually stop shooting, I'm just a big fan of the work that you all do to bring great stories to life.
Yeah, that's so great.
Wait, so your friend said that you were crazy, that you had reservations? I never heard of that.
Oh, yeah, everybody. Because
Really?
I have no filter, and as you can tell, I'm sure you have lots of great outtakes that that didn't make the film, which is great. And then I ended up getting too pregnant for you to continue to film me, because it was going to be hard to edit, because I was one of those that put on a lot of baby weight. So
Well, you did have a roller coaster. You had your own roller coaster for sure.
I did. I had this big plan that I was going to do, like, dress, or that wardrobe that they send you, and I was going to be the most stylish that I've ever been in my life, and that all just went out the window. So again, I think that it was great that they focused on T-Man.
Oh, that's so great. Well, and then of course, Terence, you got contacted. They all talked to you about the idea of making a documentary. Tell us what was that like? How did you feel about that? And how was the process of having this, the kind of a crew follow you and talk to you and interview you? Tell us a little bit about how that was for you.
Actually, I felt pretty accomplished about this whole scenario and thing. And when we start the film, I feel really determined, and I wanted to branch out, and I wanted to show them what I do. Mm-hmm. Like when I was at CPCC, when I was at Wells Fargo and Avid Exchange, and when I was at even when I was at the Charlotte Transit bus, I show them what's going on and everything, and I show my personal life at times.
Well, I've got to imagine that's probably difficult. At least it would be for me to kind of, having somebody follow you around and kind of and checking in with you with cameras and all that. But you seemed very comfortable with it, and it seemed like maybe it's something that you guys formed a good relationship. I know between all of you involved. Did that seem like it helped?
Oh yeah, especially when it involves business.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that seemed to be something that you were comfortable with. That absolutely, for sure. So.
I think it took a long time for us to really figure each other out, though, Terence. Was there? I think it was maybe 7 months into following your story that we even were comfortable talking about autism or disability or anything. Do you remember? Was there a time where you really felt like you could trust us, or did you think it was that way from the beginning?
It was that way from the beginning. I mean, I can trust you I can trust you fully. I mean, as long as especially when you're a friend of Lindsay's and Mary's, I mean, you're definitely well trusted.
And I think Nick did a great job. I think when there was times where things got tough, we tried to provide kind of the background communication to make sure that there's a fine line between telling somebody's story and then making sure that it's being represented in a way that is true to what's happening. And I think Nick did a really good job of toeing that line, especially during the hard conflicts that he was having with your mom.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, my Holocaust with my mom, and pretty much the entire concession with my mom and dad. That's the only part I do not like because
it's hard for me to watch, and I've known your parents for a really long time, but I kind of think about it as I've known you T-Man. And sometimes I think you use the film, and not intentionally, but I think that this film gave you superpowers because those tough conversations with your mom have been happening for a while, right?
Oh, yeah.
And wanting to move out. And this kind of, in some ways, gave you, kind of the courage, I think, to like really pursue it. And that, I think, is a huge win because you've been living on your own now successfully. Despite all the odds that have been presented to you, you always make rent and, can take care of yourself. So good job.
Oh, yeah, I do.
It was wonderful just getting to follow you, Terence. So again, I know when we watch documentaries, we want to connect with the person we're watching, and you were very, very easy to connect with. So we really enjoyed just hearing your story, and especially hearing it from your own words in many cases too. That was it was really great. So I thank you for being a part of this and letting Nick and Lindsay and everybody else work with you on this film. So.
Of course.
Yeah, that's great. We actually have a couple questions from the audience. So actually, I'd love to go ahead and funnel those over. Chris, want to read out one for us?
Yeah, I was going to say, Terence, somebody was commenting, they said that you should be very proud. Your desire for independence is very admirable. And this is a statement about the entire film overall. When I was watching it, I felt like it was almost like a thriller, like an action movie. And here's why. Because, you immediately were so invested in your story, Terence, that it was like, I felt like I was wearing my heart on my sleeve. And I was just so nervous the entire documentary because you wanted the best for you. So it was really powerful. So thank you for being so open about everything you were going through. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk, how long were you all working together? Kind of talk us through kind of the duration of the filmmaking process, and just, and Nick, I'm always curious from a documentary standpoint, how much footage do you feel like you probably shot that you were really trying to make sure you captured the story the way it needed to be captured?
Yeah, so we started in late October 2017, wrapped up filming in about April, maybe May of 2019. So it was about a year and 7 or 8 months, something like that, of just following Terence around. How much we probably, I think I counted it one day, we did like 50 or 52 days of shooting with Terence. A lot of those days were just, I think we just riding the bus. We just hung out. Yeah. We just really got to know Terence. The way things sort of came about or flowed was, we were careful about stepping into Terence's life and perhaps causing damage or So we were very, very slow to we tried to get to know Terence. He and I and my co-filmmaker, Huing, we just hung out for a long time. It just took us we really took the time to understand Terence, to understand his life, understand what he was going for. And so that's kind of why things took, we sort of intentionally took such a long time to follow him and make sure we were doing it right. Let's see, after that, it took about 6 months of editing, I think. It took most of the rest of 2019. But yeah, I think we intended when we first started to tell a more succinct, tight story. And then we found that just sitting and listening to Terence was really the best way to tell his story. And anybody that's made a documentary knows that observational films take a lot longer. Yeah. And so it just took, we just really took the time to make sure that we were sitting and waiting for the exact moment for Terence to be able to open up, for us to be able to approach certain topics and subjects. Like I said, Terence, you and I didn't really talk much about disability or autism for probably the first 6 months I knew you. We really waited to make sure that you were comfortable with us to approach some of those themes. And yeah, so it was just sort of an organic thing. It just, the film took the form that Terence's story kind of needed, which I think, as Lindsay alluded to, a lot of people bring preconceived notions, I think, to the world of disability, particularly autism. And we just wanted to ensure that Terence's voice was what was really coming through. So, yeah.
Well, I was going to comment and say that I think that's what I probably admired about the film as much too, is that it didn't feel the need to dwell on more of the state of autism. It really is dealing with look, let's look at them as an individuals and let's see what it is they're doing to try to move ahead and claim that independence, which, obviously we all wanted for Terence too. So I think that was great to see also.
Right. I think our goal became, let's give audiences a space to step into the life of a young man with autism
and depression.
Amongst other things, exactly, yeah,
Sure.
and just sit in that for 1 hour. That's the best way to sort of bring awareness and to help out somebody like Terence. And it's just to let people sit in that for an hour.
Yeah, agreed. Chris, I think we have another audience question.
Yes, Terence, they would like a kind of a life update with you, about you since the film has finished. And also they'd like to know how has living through the pandemic with, COVID-19, how has that been for you? So if you could talk a little bit about that, that'd be great.
During this pandemic is actually not half bad. I mean, I've seen some new things going on, like you're supposed to wear a face mask. I mean, the bus service is very limited, like almost more than half of the bus routes, they're not running a regular schedule anymore. I mean, a few of them, like the routes 9, 10, and 27, they continue running for like regular schedule, and they now running on a Saturday schedule. And it's not that hard for me, but it is hard for me when I start working at around 7 o'clock and at JP Morgan. But it is not too hard when it comes to working around 8 o'clock.
So you mentioned JP Morgan. So tell us, I know you changed jobs since the end of the film that we saw. Tell us what you're doing now.
I'm doing data entry clerk at JP Morgan. I'm doing voucher data entry and some scan lines sometimes, and just keying the numbers and letters that are in the vouchers and checks.
Right.
I take them to the client, and I make sure that it's completely accurate, like 100% accuracy.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah, he's very accurate. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Terence, why don't you talk about what we were doing between, February and when you got the job at JP Morgan?
From February to June?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
man.
your unemployment?
I was fighting through unemployment, and I was applying for unemployment, but they denied me entirely because I have Social Security. I was working on my Social Security, and back around like January 17th, back then, I think Nick was with me on when that's Social Security, and but I was didn't accept. I was trying to apply. I was trying to reapply for Social Security, but they denied me there too.
Yes. So he went to Social Security. They didn't just report that he had lost his job, and they completed a brand new application without the correct data. So they denied him, saying that he doesn't have a disability, which puts medical benefits at peril. And then he was denied unemployment because he had applied or reapplied, even though he didn't really need to. Basically, he just needed to get his cash benefit to restart because he started making more money by working. So he stopped receiving the cash benefit. And so it's just been a series of systemic failures for poor T-Man throughout this whole process. We've had to get our elected officials involved. And at the end of the day, still got denied the pandemic unemployment that was supposed to cover everybody else that wasn't covered by North Carolina employment. And again, I think it just speaks to the larger issue that the laws in North Carolina and Wisconsin are designed not to really allow people with disabilities to move to the point that Terence did. There's only 0.5% of people, Terence, that actually work their way off benefits. And that's what you did. And that's really why you're a superhero. So the idea that we've got this system that once you get there, doesn't give you the same safety net as everyone else, I think is a big issue.
Oh, yeah.
And as Terence alluded to, he and I did go to Social Security one day, and they wouldn't let us film. And I truly, truly wish that viewers could have seen that. I don't know how anybody navigates the Social Security system. It's the most confusing system that I've ever. He and I sat down with somebody there for probably an hour, and I couldn't understand whether he was trying to figure out whether he could switch benefits to himself or if he earned more money, what might happen, and nobody could really give us a straight answer. It's terrifyingly confusing.
It is.
So I don't know. You need to be professional to navigate it.
That's unfortunate.
And even if you are a professional, you get a different answer every time. So I just every system's perfectly designed to achieve the results it gets. And if people fall off the system, it makes more money for everybody else. So, anyways.
Oh wow. Well, sorry you went through those struggles. I'm glad that it sounds like you've got a great job now and you're doing some good work. So we're happy to hear that for you as well, Terrence.
Oh yeah.
Chris, I think there's another comment or question.
Yeah, this is a question for Nick. As a filmmaker, they were wondering, how did you grapple with intervening in the story? And I was actually curious about that too, specifically with the whole the rent situation and how that kind of unfolded. And it was tense. But how was that experience?
This is continually surprising to me how this is like the one thing everybody is first asking me about. To me, stepping into the story was never felt like much of a step for me. I mean, we could have had a different film, a more dramatic film, had we not stepped in at a couple of occasions. I think the one that most people ask us about is when he was about to sign the lease. Yeah. And I guess maybe fielding the stuff from his parents. We could have done one of two things. We could have stepped back and let Terence flail and perhaps fail, maybe had a more interesting film, or we could have done the human thing and stepped in where we could. We chose to get to know Terence really intimately. I consider him a friend. He, for the past 2 years now, is the first one to text me on my birthday.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so what we got out of that was a sincere, true, honest intimacy. That's the first thing that you guys commented, that Terence was perfectly open and honest with us. We wouldn't have got that had we not been willing and able to step in and intervene when something catastrophic was going to happen. I would do it again without any hesitation. There are of course limits. We're not going to manipulate every little aspect of his life, but we're certainly not going to. I wasn't prepared to just let him make a mistake or do something catastrophic right in front of my eyes, or if I could help the film be damned, I don't care. I'm not going to let him, fail like that. So. Yeah, it's interesting to me that so many people I don't see what other people are seeing maybe, but to me it was just an obvious choice.
Well, sure. I for one am glad you did, because I think I actually found it to be more captivating knowing that there were people there working with him and working with the situation and being more mindful of what's right as opposed to what just maybe makes drama or anything. So that was great. It was very good. Lindsay, I wanted to ask about your organization, Advocation. We're introduced to you in the film. We kind of get a sense of what your company does, but maybe help me understand the breadth of the amount of people you help serve, or kind of the what that span of work you do with those individuals looks like.
Sure. I started Advocations in 2009. I was 25, and I had this dream of changing the way companies hire and retain talent with disabilities, because I thought that the space was dominated by, a charitable mindset, that a company needs to feel good, and that's why they hire people with disabilities. And people like Terence, are kind of prove that theory wrong. Every job that Terence has had, he's achieved a level of production that was far beyond what the average worker does. In one case, he was, 178% production. So he's almost doing the work of two people. Wow. And what Advocations does is really finds those, those jobs where a disability then becomes an asset or irrelevant. Okay. So rather than plugging people into these jobs in like food, flowers, fill, folding, basically the typical jobs for people with disabilities, we work with a company, identify where they have high turnover, and then really try to figure out exactly how we can solve that through a business mindset, and allowing them to find and connect with the talent pipeline that's going to stay in the job, because unfortunately 90% of people with autism are underemployed. And so before the pandemic, when companies were having a hard time finding talent, it was us creating a new way for them to engage a place or a group of people that are often screened out before they're even, before their resume is actually reviewed by an actual human. And so we're all about making connections and making the employment process and removing the barriers in the way, but doing it from a very mainstream approach instead of creating these special jobs. We want to make sure that people can stand on their own and that they can have a path to self-sufficiency. So just like T-Man did, we've helped, over 10,000 people do the same thing, maybe not the same level. I would have to say that there are, as I said in the film, he has achieved every goal he set for himself, and I continue to see that every day.
That's so great. Lindsay, thank you for the work you're doing with the company there, and that's amazing. So I'm speaking as someone, we actually had a coworker that worked with us for 25 years.
Long time.
I believe that was autistic, and we were able to really help him find a job that he excelled in, and it was great organizations like yours that were helping kind of support that and make that happen. So thank you for that work. So absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what's coming up on the horizon for anybody? I'd love to hear if anybody, Nick, from a filmmaking standpoint, if there's any other projects or things that you want to talk to us about. Terence, when we get to you, I'd love to hear just if there's anything going on that you want to tell us about or you're looking forward to, or maybe look towards the future. And Lindsay, anything also with the organization or your work that we can be looking forward to as well. Nick, you want to start us off? Anything going on?
Yeah, so we continue pushing on with T-Man. It's going to be in one last festival here this fall. Not to plug another festival, but
no, it's fine. We're all friendly here, so it's all good. Yeah,
it'll be in the Raleigh Film and Art Festival next week. And then we are in talks with UNC TV. We're about to sign a contract with them to broadcast the film as part of they're doing a film festival thing through the month of November, I believe.
Yep.
So it'll be broadcast statewide come November, and then once again is March Autism Awareness Month, Lindsay?
April.
April? I knew that.
I'm pretty sure. Hold on. I'm positive, but that's just my gut feeling.
It'll be one of those months. It'll be rebroadcast for Autism Awareness Month as well. So we're really excited about that.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's wonderful. Lindsay, anything just to be aware of going on with you, or any other projects to be aware of?
Well, I think one of I kind of touched on it, and I made Terence kind of share his little story, but we are really pushing to have this law change. And, and T-Man, unfortunately, isn't the only person, but he, again, is one brave enough to speak out. So as we've been learning more about this, we found that a lot of people with disabilities weren't fighting or appealing the denial for unemployment, which if you're not receiving your Social Security and you're not receiving unemployment, what happens? And so we've created a petition and a website called T-Man's Law to really change that law, because at the end of the day, you can't expect people to go to work and then deny them the same kind of safety net as everyone else. So I think that at the end of the day, from a mission-driven standpoint, my goal is to help as many people with disabilities find their passions and be able to contribute to the world in the way that we need them to. And by not allowing them the same benefits, I can't, help somebody get a full-time job and then say that everything's going to be okay if they lose their job through no fault of their own. So I think that's my current passion project, is really working with the legislators and other government officials to try to change that for people like T-Man. Obviously, we were able to get him a job, which meant that he didn't have to lose the apartment he's in right now. But there was times like in May when your job got pushed back, and we kept thinking, what's going to happen? This is one more month that, and I've had government officials say that, my sense of urgency was a matter of opinion. And this was somebody that was receiving a paycheck every week. And it had been 13 weeks since T-Man had been denied unemployment. So I think that there's a lot of education that still needs to be done. And I'm really excited that Nick gets to share this story, because I think it does tell a unique story. I think sometimes people that have disabilities, and, if you have a child with a disability and you're listening to this, ask them what they want to be when they grow up. I think a lot of children are kind of starved for that opportunity to have a future, because we put such a low threshold on what they can actually do. And I can tell you that the world of work is changing for people with disabilities, and companies are starting to understand it. So I think that there's a lot of, we're at a tipping point, I hope. And it's just a matter of trying to figure out how we get through this pandemic, because unfortunately, a lot of our folks were the first fired, not because they weren't producing, but because they didn't have families. And it was a lot easier.
Wow. Oops.
Made that rational decision to furlough them, so that way they could save positions for people that were supporting, their families, which is, still not fair.
So, Lindsay, again, that T-Man's Law is what, if anybody wants to search for or kind of find out online. Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to share that out with everybody to make sure they're able to find a way to get connected with that. That's wonderful. Thanks. Well, what about Terence? Anything you want to share with us? Anything going on? How's life in your apartment? And tell us what you're doing right now.
What I'm doing right now is just relaxing, and I just came from South Park and then just saving money for some bills and and my rent and everything.
Yeah.
And
that's great.
I just love to save money and everything.
No, that's absolutely wonderful. So you've got a lot of people that have made some comments about just how they really, again, and appreciated hearing your story and your honesty, being able to be honest throughout the process and tell us what you were thinking and what you were feeling at times. It was really great to hear. And we just appreciate you being a part of the film. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard for people with disabilities like autism, Tourette syndrome, and depression and every kinds of stuff. But I wanted to speak to everybody because I think this is time for me to speak up and leave that out of the closet, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And to say, I came out of the closet, I have autism.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I already told them that I had depression, but I'm going to tell them my super secret. I have autism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I barely tell to anyone unless if it's from Advocations or my family or, God forbid, my doctors.
Yeah.
So.
And we appreciate that, team.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. Do you remember when you talked to us first about your autism? You saw a billboard?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
So he saw a billboard that said people with autism avoid eye contact. And remember?
Yeah.
So you've come a long way. I think that because that wasn't a label that you talked about when you were growing up, and not that you should have. But I think that there's a lot of people like you, and a lot of older people. So if you have autism and you're 30 or above, you might not have ever gotten that diagnosis. And so then all of a sudden, when you realize you might fall in the spectrum, it's like, the lights come on. And we know a lot of families, people that have married people with autism, and all of a sudden they learn a little bit more about what autism is. And it's not just one way. Like, you always say, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. It truly is a spectrum. And so I think that by people understanding a little bit more of just how you think and process things, we can all learn something, from that engagement. It allows you to be more clear in your communication, not take advantage of social norms.
Yeah.
So I'm just really proud of you. I don't know if you saw me tear up a little bit earlier, but I'm just so excited that other people got to see what I see every day. I'm just really proud of you.
Yeah.
Yep.
We all are. And we're just really proud of the whole team for putting this together and bringing so much awareness to the subject. And again, and putting in a framework of seeing it through the eyes of someone that, is really that the whole title, that whole, quest for independence. We love that framework around it. So thank you for sharing the story. Thank you to all the watchers and listeners with us today. Let me go back around thanking everybody. So Nick Deal up in the top left corner, director. Thank you for joining us. Lindsay Bracciali. I'm getting the name right. Bracciali. Oh, I was a little bit off on that one. I'm sorry. CEO of Advocation and a great advocate for the type of work that's going on and that we got to hear from, of course, T-Man, Terence as well, there on the bottom of the screen. Thank you all very much for being with us today. And I want to say thanks to everybody watching.
Give a virtual hug.
Yes, exactly. Hold on, do that again. Show us again the virtual hug. I flipped it over to everybody. So yeah,
that's nice.
One more time, Terence. There we go.
There you go.
That's awesome.
That's great.
That's awesome.
That is so great. Thank you everybody for joining us today. And remember to rate the film on your online ballot. The way you would do this is after you're done watching, if you close off the movie, back on the page where you unlocked it or bought a ticket, you actually have a little strip where you can give it a rating. And we use those to determine our audience favorite awards at the end of the weekend. We have our live events ceremony going on Sunday night at 7:00, where we're going to be announcing the winners from the festival, both by jury and audience. And then also we are giving out our Filmmaker Grant Awards. We have 3 filmmakers that are going to be getting North Carolina-based filmmakers receiving some grants for new projects they're going to be looking to do in the coming year or two. So again, I'll kind of toss it out even to Nick. Where are you located, Nick? I forgot to ask that.
I actually just moved here to Raleigh.
Perfect. Well, there you go.
Raleigh?
Keep in mind, if you've got another project coming up soon, we'd
The
love to hear
sequel.
from you on that.
The
So,
sequel to
yeah,
there you
Teenage
go.
Story.
that's right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's a good idea.
Wonderful. Well, we're very happy to have everybody here. Thanks for your attendance, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon. Enjoy the rest of the films this weekend. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.